Alex, thank you for joining me today on Pop Culture Unplugged.
Thank you, Elias.
Yeah. Exciting times, my friend. We got when the stars gossip, Netflix. Is it mid-February? When they haven't really they've been going back and forth with the dates. Do you have an exact date for that?
I think it starts because it's a part TV, part online streaming. So I think they start on the 4th of January, but
Okay.
then it's two episodes every week until the end of February.
Yeah, because I know when I was doing some research, I saw that they were going back and forth with a couple dates when they want to get it
Right,
going.
right. Like there was another because it's done by Studio Dragon or TVN, and they released this other Netflix show called Queen of Tears, and they did that like 3 weeks later. They did like a like
Yeah,
bingeable set of like 6 episodes or something, and then we with weekly episodes. But yeah,
yeah,
who
that's
knows? Maybe they
awesome.
changed their mind.
Right, right.
But I
Hey, as
think
long as it
from
comes out and
from
people watch it, that's all that matters.
from the trailers I've seen, it seems like it's January 4th everywhere.
Mm. So
So
you had an
that's
incredible journey. I was doing some research on you too. You've done Cable Girls, Mallorca Files, Vampire Academy. How would you like describe your career evolution so far?
It's definitely been like yeah, before I lived in LA, I studied acting in LA, and then just life, man. Like you kind of go path of least resistance, and there was this moment where it seemed like I was getting more work in Europe, so then I kind of
Mm.
just and I have family in Europe, so it makes it easy if you have family someplace. So then I've just kind of ventured out, and I kind of my niche, I suppose, would be like, all these sort of co-productions with people where they need people with multiple passports or things like that. And
Yeah.
there you go. I'm your guy.
Yeah. Looking back at your career and previous roles, was there a specific character or project that shaped you to the actor you are today?
Man, that's a tough question. Yeah, I mean, for sure, there was like obviously my first work with a prominent director. I did this small role on a Ridley Scott movie called The Counselor,
Okay.
and that's kind of like a more than anything, it's like a confidence validation, like when it's a
Mm.
big director that, has you on their set and then they take time to explain their vision, even if it's just, 30 minutes because you're only on set for like one day. It's kind of like it gives you, at least for me, what I felt like I was missing in the earlier part of my career was some sort of confidence as far as like, you can do this, go forward. Especially because I don't have any family that's in performing arts, so
Mm.
it was very kind of a very soul journey.
Yeah. Well, so what made you get into acting then? Because most guests that I have on, they have somebody that's worked in the entertainment industry that kind of pushed them. Like, what made you get into it?
Well, when I was a kid, I lived in LA. I went to school in LA, and my mother had signed me up for, I did a lot of commercials and things like that. I got close
Okay.
on some projects when I was a child, and and then my parents moved away. And then after college, I turned on the TV and I saw an old friend of mine from school on a show, Amber Stevens. She was on this show called Greek. It's like
Yeah, I remember
it's
that.
like a frat show on ABC, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, ah, I should have studied this. What am I doing? So then, yeah. So it's really that, and because I kind of felt that what I had studied before, I studied chemistry and chemical
Okay.
engineering, and I felt that like that wasn't my thing, And because I was living in Minnesota at the time, it's just easy to, go in a different direction, I guess.
You've
Yeah.
been all over, huh? Minnesota, LA, Madrid.
Yeah. Korea. I was in Korea for a year to do this.
Right.
Yeah, I really like having to travel. I think that's like my favorite part of this business is when it's someplace really remote. And not that Korea is really remote. I mean, I think the most remote place I've ever shot in was Georgia, the country,
Mm.
because it's like so off the beaten path that, I'd otherwise never really go and visit. And you get to see and, experience things that maybe you otherwise wouldn't, which I think is really cool. It's like the most, uh, what do you call it, fulfilling part for me.
That's
Of,
awesome.
of
So being based in Madrid, like how do you balance the opportunities between, European cinema and TV and and Do you all over the world? Like, how do you balance it? How do you decide what you want to do?
Uh, that I don't know. You kind of just luckily with the Korean show, for example, I
Yeah.
have a lot of airline miles, so it's very easy for me to go out on a whim. Like, oh, you have to go to LA or New York or something for an audition, and I can do that because I have tons of airline miles. Thank God. Or if you happen to find a cheap ticket, then it's okay. But yeah, kind of just that, and like being resourceful. I guess you learn to kind of like if any friends come visit here, they can always stay at my place. And if I go to New York, I can, stay at a friend's place. Or in LA, I have family, so I
Mm.
can stay in LA. But yeah, that kind of stuff. So it helps. It helps. It's not as useful early in your career as it is like now. Now it's really useful for me to have all this stuff now that I've done more work. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's more opportunities because you're based out of like Europe?
No, not really. In fact, I
No.
usually feel like I'm missing out on stuff because sometimes there's so much that all the big decisions get made in LA.
Mm.
Um, but 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 yeah, I mean, I'm kind of open to wherever. It's the plus of having both, American and Spanish citizenships. I don't have to worry about visas
Yeah.
or that kind of stuff because that's usually a big factor for other people.
Do you have like a dream role or a type of project that you ever done that you want to explore someday?
I guess I'd like to play a historical figure. I mean, the Cable Girls, I kind of did like my character on the Cable Girls was a Ernest Hemingway
Yeah.
type character, except they didn't call him Ernest Hemingway, and they changed a lot of stuff, for the fact for the show. And I'd like to do a historical like or like a Western. I've been recently watching Yellowstone, and that kind of makes me want to like have a hat and be like,
Yeah.
boy, let's get on them horses.
Yeah. Hey, the way Taylor Sheridan is going, who knows? He
Yeah.
might have a chance. He loves pumping these projects out.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm open to trying new things. I mean, this Korean show kind of it was like a manifestation in a way, because I'd
Mm.
been working on Vampire Academy, and the actors that was shot in Spain, Vampire Academy,
Yeah.
and I was a local hire in Spain for this, and some of the guys from the U.S. they'd been there for I was there for the second half of the show, but all the leads, they'd been there, 6, 7 months or something. And I thought, oh, that would be so cool to be part of a show where I had to travel someplace really far in a different culture. There's a lot of like several of them hadn't been to Spain before.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that'd be so nice. And then about a month later, I got this opportunity to go to Korea. I was like, oh my God, I remember thinking about this and like meditating about it. And then it happened.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
So did you
amazing.
get like a phone call or something? Like we might have a part for you and want you to audition? Like, how did that happen?
I was I'm quite a foodie, so I went with a friend to Italy for my birthday. We did like a foodie trip with one of my
Okay.
best friends around like Lake Como and Milan and stuff. And I was convinced I was gonna I'd been auditioning for this other show, and I was convinced because I'd sent in several tapes. This is still like COVID times, so there's a lot of like self tapes.
Yeah.
And like my agent was like, "Oh, tape yourself for this thing in Korea." I was like, "Yeah, right." Like not even on my radar, Korea. And it was like it was a funny translation because it wasn't like there's a lot of lost in like so it wasn't an official translation of the script, so it felt really wacky when I was reading it. I was like, "What is this?" And they're like, "No, it's a space show." And I kind of had this sort of like, "Oh, it must be like a Wes Anderson vibe." Like really sort of this sort of strange parody
Yeah.
cookie cutter. That's what it felt like, what it read like. So I kind of was like, oh, whatever, I'll just shoot it and be done with it and go for lunch. And then yeah, and then it was a direct booking. Like it wasn't even sometimes in the process of this, especially during COVID, you tape and then you have a Zoom meeting with a director, and then you kind of do like if it was in person, and
Yeah.
they give you some feedback and you tape it again, and maybe you're recording it with your phone so that they can have like a high quality recording for it, and then you send that in. Um, but none of that happened, and it was, it's one of the main roles on the show. So I was
Mm.
like, okay, and I sent in this 30-second, 40-second clip, and yeah, sometimes when it's for you, it's for you. So
Right.
yeah,
What can you tell us about the character of Santiago and how does he fit in the storyline with this?
Uh, well, my character's based off of some literature in space. There was let's see if I don't butcher this. There was an astronaut that discovered that his sperm was fertile in zero gravity. And Korea is the country that has the lowest, what do you call it, birth rate in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like a big deal because they have a very aging population. Also in Japan, this is happening. Very aging population, and they don't have anybody new kind of to like keep. It's not like the U.S. where there's there's a where there's people there's immigration and then there's like a birth rate. And
Yeah.
some of the other parts of the world it's kind of like in decay. And so this show is essentially about that. And my character is somebody who's goes to space because he's obsessed with trying to have a kid. Yet being in space keeps him away from his potential family. So
Mm,
it's an interesting contradiction. And I think that's kind of the whole basis of the show, in my opinion, is that despite trying to find a solution, you know, out there, the real questions are always come from within. So
right.
yeah.
What did you learn being like on set with like an established Korean talent also?
Oh, that was very interesting because they have a totally different way of working.
Mm,
Everybody has their own, especially Mino and Hyojin. They're like these
yeah.
huge stars over there. They have their own, people have their own team, like their own makeup artists, their own stylists, and they kind of come in there with their whole like entourage of people. Like maybe Mino had like a team of like 8, 9 people with him, and same with Hyojin. And yeah, it was very interesting to learn. They even had their own set photographers. I had my own. At one point, I was like, "Oh yeah, then I'm gonna have it too." And I found my own photographer. I brought my own set photographer. Um, but yeah, it was it's for this particular. But they have very long, very very long shooting hours in
Mm,
Asia. But for this particular show, where it takes a long time you have to put on these harnesses to do this, mimic this zero gravity,
yeah.
and by the time you get everybody, especially when it's a group scene, when there's like six of us, there's six of us in space. Whenever it was a group scene, that would take a really long time to shoot. And sometimes you think, oh man, if we were shooting this in Europe, this would take 3 times longer because by the time everybody gets somebody wants to go to the bathroom, they have to take all the harness, everything out. You got to get off of the like sound stage where they had a copy that we used 4 different sound stages, and they had an exact replica of the space station,
Mm,
in each section. One section was kind of like the sort of Russian module. The other one was the American European module, and then there was like, some of these other attachments. Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting, very, very different, but very cool. And since the most particular part for me, especially, was I was the only Westerner on the show,
yeah.
so I definitely felt like very lost in translation, and especially in the beginning of the show,
Mm,
because not that many people speak English, and Lost in Translation is one of my favorite movies, and I definitely felt uh, some of the notes I'd get in the beginning from the director. This really long. I don't know if you've seen Lost in Translation, where he's giving
yeah,
the whiskey
yeah.
commercial, and it's like this really long, sort of metaphoric way of speaking. And then somebody would tell me, "Well, you just have to do it again." And it's like really, that's not what he said.
Yeah.
So yeah. But it was very very enriching,
Mm.
and I would definitely do it again. In fact, I'm learning Korean. I'd love to, work on something again in Korea. When they have like, they're very go for it mentality, which I think is very admirable.
You mentioned the space station. Did they bring anybody on set to try to like train you guys like how to act with certain scenes or like to actually being on space
Yeah,
in space?
there's a Korean astronaut, Soyeon
Okay.
Yi. And she was the only Korean astronaut who's actually been in space.
Mm,
And she was in space, I think, for a month or 2 months. And so she came on set to like answer questions and things. And then the director I don't know, I'm sure he made everybody else watch, but he made me watch there was a documentary about like because he wanted to be very realistic with the whole space movement.
Yeah.
And so I watched a lot of documentaries just to see how the, especially just focusing on the like movement, because everything had to be like, especially in space, you can't like push off the way you push off here, because you have something, to stop you really quick. But there, if you just push off, all of a sudden, you have nowhere to
Right.
attach. So, yeah. So the first 3 months of the show were very tough because there was a lot of like, cut, no, you pushed off, it doesn't look real, this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the harnesses themselves, the closest you'd feel to zero gravity was when you're wearing one of these forks with a sort of, there's two ways of doing zero gravity. You're either hanging on a wire with a vest, and you can be hanging vertical or horizontal, or they had these sort of these harnesses that had like a cylinder thing, and you could spin around on them on a fork, on this like massive fork, and that fork was hung on a wire, and you had some other people, some green guys, on the other side, kind of like moving you around, and that felt very zero gravity, you know.
Did you get sick?
No, no, no. But apparently the astronaut, this Soyeon was saying that it feels like you constantly want to vomit in space. So
Mm.
it's a very peculiar feeling. And because you know that it's so special, you're okay with it. But if it was like that all the time, it would be very difficult. So yeah, which is okay because the harnesses would hurt after a while. So you'd be very uncomfortable, like, yeah, you could move well, but you'd be like, oh, I'm dying in pain.
Would you say this was the hardest challenge for you to film
For
this?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And in the summer it's very hot. If you're wearing a space suit, you start to sweat, and despite, and they'd have air conditioning full blast, but it's just, sometimes the materials, the hours, the hanging, you want to do the scene and maybe something is off on your harness all of a sudden, and you're like, okay, if I stop this, it's going to take like 3 hours longer, between the time they take me down, we fix the
Yeah.
harnesses. So I'm just going to hold on to this for like 30 minutes more. And then the next day you'd have like you'd be more in pain, but it was okay. They had the one cool thing they had a massage room on the
Okay.
on set. Yeah. So you'd have these different sort of massage, those automatic, like fancy
Yeah.
massage beds. So there's that. And then we all had massage like Theraguns. And yeah. And then the cool thing in Korea was acupuncture is part of their it's like covered by medical insurance.
Wow.
So I'd go anytime I had any sort of pain, I'd be the next day, I'd be at the acupuncture clinic. And that makes you feel amazing the next day. So yeah,
So
so the recovery was nice.
mm. So the show explores like, themes of love and destiny. Like what kind of message do you hope like the audience takes away from the series when they tune in?
uh I think that you can find some, maybe that you fall in love in the most unexpected places, like I
Mm.
think that's kind of the premise of the show. And and maybe it's also that it's a lot closer to you than you think. Sometimes people think, oh, I can't fall in love because I have all this, but that's really just your own mental barrier. If you Yeah, I think so. I think that's my character's journey is kind of also one of maybe self-love, within the conflicts that happen or the things that arise. I'm trying not to like give a spoiler. Can you
Right,
imagine?
right.
um, yeah, so for sure. And I think there's a value, especially when, well, it's the same thing that happens when you work with people on a project for a year or something. There comes a point where you value the relationship you have with the people that you work with much more than the result of whatever it is that you're actually doing. And that oddly makes the result better. So yeah, I think,
What did you love about Santiago? Is there anything you would change about him if you could?
mm, no, because I thought he's like the best version that I could possibly be.
Okay.
Like all these astronauts, all these people that go to space, they're like really excellent people. They like live in in sort of this, conditions of extreme excellence. They're like, you know, Soyeon, the astronaut, she was like a engineer, from I forget what university, but some like Ivy League or top university,
Yeah.
and then they're in this program, and then within the program, only like the best of that program actually go to space. So it's like this, just uh, yeah, it's just like the best of the best. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I got to try to play a character that's similar? I mean, there's obviously things that are different, based
Yeah.
on like the script itself, but within that, the best version I could be of myself would be close to what
Mm,
the best version of this astronaut would be.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I thought that was interesting to play. Um, and it was super fun. I mean, yeah.
Is there like a standout like a moment during filming like you're always gonna remember from this experience?
Oh, definitely I mean, it's like the least, for sure, it's the least, what do you call it? Like glamorous part of the
Okay.
shoot. I guess there are two. One is like the beginning, the first two episodes. It's oh, you have to get to space, right? So we have to
Yeah.
take the Soyuz, which is based off of the Russian rocket. And so they had a copy of the Soyuz capsule, right? And so
Mm,
it was just me, Hyojin, and Mino for the first like 2.5, 3 months. And we were in this sort of really confined, because they had the camera on a crane, so there was like, we were sort of in this very sort of confined like space like this, with, you know, me here, Mino on my right, Jojo on my left, and
yeah.
we like the most uncomfortable seat, there for like all day. And so I have but we became close because of that. So,
Mm,
so, uh, so I have a very fond memory of that, obviously. And then we were shooting one day, uh, this return to Earth, and astronaut. When that happens, you're very dehydrated, and I totally misunderstood the like water, like, because one of the gags in the show is like my character's drinking all this water while this is going down, and at one point I thought that it's like a mid shot on me, and so I actually started drinking a ton of water, and I felt so sick. We had to stop shooting, and I had to go. We took a run. I took a run for like an hour, and then I went to go eat at like the saltiest takalbi, which is like this stirred chicken place. So, because I totally misunderstood, and everybody was really worried I drank too much water. So I was like, no, 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 it's okay. Um, I'll be back. Just give me like 3 hours, and I'll be back, and we can shoot all like my close-ups drinking water. And I was like,
yeah.
damn it, I have to go like sweat some of this out. And yeah, so I definitely, yeah, that was that was definitely an interesting moment. And obviously the casting scene. So the scene I shot to shoot, to like for the audition scene, which
Yeah.
was like a 30-second version of actually a much longer scene. When we shot it, uh, in on set, like, with all the decoration and like the space station and stuff, it felt very like this very full circle moment of like,
Mm,
wow, how different is this from when, because we'd rehearsed that scene, because that was one of the first scenes that we were shooting, like with like movement, like moving around the space, like not in the rocket, but in the actual space station. And so it kind of had like these three references of shooting this. And then so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it looks like at the
right.
end. I'm excited.
Last question in the series. I know we can't talk spoilers, but could you see a season two? Could you see a continuation of the story?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Usually Korean shows are, like the other ones I've seen, they're usually kind of intended to have just one season, but
Okay.
they leave enough cliffhangers. And this one, totally, I can't spoil the show, but you could definitely have
Mm,
uh season two that is I mean, you could use the same sets, but it would be totally different setup for
yeah.
the. Yeah, I can't say more because
Right, right.
that'd be such a huge spoiler. They'd kill me. They'd be like, "We're never working with this guy again." And like the Tom Holland, when he does. I feel like there was this very famous thing of him like spoiling like a movie poster. Like they'd sent a movie poster like 3 months before it came out, and he was like unboxing it and showing
Yeah.
it, and all the fans were like, "Wow, that's a new poster!"
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Alex, what's next for you now? Any other projects you'd like to tell us about before we end this chat?
Uh, I got well. There's some stuff in the works, but nothing like confirmed.
Okay.
There's one project I might do, but you never know. And then I'm really excited with this. I'm actually excited that I don't have anything like too set in stone,
Hmm.
because I'm excited about what this show might bring. So yeah, yeah. So I'm just there,
There you go.
fanning
A-
out.
Alex, let's end this by hucking down the viewers and listeners. I'm sure you're going to get a lot more fans that follow you on social media. How can they find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I think I'm on Instagram and X. My username is the Alex Hafner. I like anyway. This is a different story. And then on TikTok, I think it's just Alex Hafner. But I don't use TikTok that much. But I will start using TikTok. It's my goal for the new year.
There you
Get
go.
get with the times.
There you go.
But yeah.
Alex, I want to thank you for giving a few minutes today. Good luck with the series. And like I said, hopefully, I think it's going to do well.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I mean, like the stuff that I've seen when I went to go do the ADR looked great, and all of the CG stuff was like is good. Which sometimes with these shows, it's like it kind of, for me at least, it makes or breaks. Like if all of a sudden it looks like a video game, then you're like, ah. But they've been working on it forever. There's almost 2 years of post production. So yeah, I'm excited. So
That's
yay.
awesome.